Jax, how are you?
Good. I mean, considering the world has ended and I'm stuck in one room, apart from going to work, because I am essential.
It's a bit different, but we're choosing to adapt and not...
not die. Adapt or die.
So we watched Waterworld this week. The 1995, not Kevin Costner directed, although probably Kevin Costner directed film.
Oh, interesting. So do you have some intrigue about that? Some gossip?
And actually, we didn't discuss this before recording this podcast, so it's going to be very interesting because there are multiple cuts of this movie.
Oh, really?
And I watched the longest cut there is.
How long is that cut?
It's called the Ulysses cut.
Of course it fucking is.
Yeah.
It couldn't just be director's cut, the Costner cut. It has to be Ulysses. That's awesome.
Well, I didn't know. I kept going, why is it called the Ulysses cut? And then there's a point in the movie where it makes sense. And if you've seen it, then you're like, oh, okay. I kept waiting for I thought there was some person maybe who re-edited it who was called that, or I have no idea. But
isn't Ulysses,
it does make sense.
Isn't Ulysses some kind of like a Greek god or something?
Yeah.
Maybe
and
like a Poseidon-esque kind of a dude?
Correct. That's what they are referencing that. And it's just through dialogue in the movie that got cut out. And basically what the cut of the movie I watched is, so you definitely didn't watch the same cut as me.
Oh my
then,
God.
Which is going to be... I think you probably watched the theatrical cut, which I was like, should I watch the theatrical cut? And then I thought, no, he went straight. When we did Dr. Sleep, he went straight for the director's cut.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do the longer one, but this will just make it, I think, a little bit more of an interesting conversation because I'm not 100% sure what all the scenes are that are different.
Yeah.
I know what the differences to the film are. Like, I saw a couple of people discussing it online.
Cool.
Just saying, like, oh, they fleshed this out a little bit more and this makes a bit more sense. And but basically, the director of this movie had a very difficult time with Kevin Costner during the making of this movie because he was kind of backseat directing it.
Right.
Which resulted in the director having, I think, a much more refined cut of the film. And then when the movie was re-edited for television, the re-edited movie contained about 3 hours, running time.
Oh, wait. So the one you watched is 3 hours fucking long?
Yes.
Oh, because I was going to say, in the back of my mind this whole time, I'm like, I watched one that was 2 hours and 15 minutes. So maybe I did watch the right one. But I fucking did not. I'm so angry because I fucking loved this movie. I didn't love...
Also, the reason I did it, that I watched the longer cut was because when I tried to find it, that was the one that kept coming up. That was the one that people kept discussing. So I should have texted you so we watched the same movie.
I did. Oh no, this is great. Because I was originally going to. I'm gonna put it up onto my screen, which you won't see. But I got the Waterworld DVD about 10, 12 years ago from like a box at my film school. They had a box and they're like, we're giving all these away for free, and I just took like 50 movies. Right. I never watched any of them because I was like, well, these all look terrible. But this is the one I was always like, I want to watch this. And I don't understand why I didn't because I fucking crave this movie. I crave everything about it. But I'm looking at the DVD and it's also, 130 minutes. So this one also wouldn't have had any of that. Okay, my first question is, was there more, was there more like of the monster that he fishes? And is there any more relation to the mutation that he has? Because they were easily my two favorite kind of like elements of the movie. And it's fucking like they put him in there's a bit where he's like, there's a mutation. And the town goes fucking mental. He's got gills. He's got webbed feet. But then there's never a point, 2/3 of the way into the movie where we meet more mutated people, which is like...
Yeah, it's just a thing.
Yeah, which is weird because this film feels very much like it's exactly how the movie should set out. You've got a big action set piece. He goes to this town. You're on the water for ages. There's like an emotional journey with him and the main characters. Then there's a big set piece on a big boat at the end. It all kind of feels very like the movie that was set up. He's a mutant. And then just before that final set piece, he'd meet like 2 or 3 other mutants, accidentally get one of them killed. I don't know. it was such a weird element to have. And when he went fishing, that was I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Because I expected the rest of the movie would be like more like that. And then it petered off into more like, this is Mad Max, but we're on water, which I totally craved. But fuck,
and that's
I lost
basically
my mind.
how the conception of the movie came to be.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, like the writers or producers or whoever it was, I remember reading, it was like, we want to do a Mad Max Road Warrior-esque, rip-off.
Yeah.
And let's design it around this. And I can't, and you can see so much of it. Like, it's just, it's oozing Mad Max. And it actually does some stuff that wasn't done until Fury Road.
Yeah.
That now, kind of watching Waterworld, it's like, oh, this kind of got Mad Max maybe even better than Mad Max got Mad Max.
Fuck yeah, it did, man. Because a lot of this movie, I was like, holy shit, this is like not Road Warrior, but Fury Road. Because a lot of there was a bit where they were like underwater and then they like cut the ropes and they flicked out of the water and it was like, oh shit, they were like hiding and just the way...
Even Dennis Hopper's character, like kind of throwing cigarettes down to the common folk reminded me so much of that.
Exactly the same.
What's his...
Immortan Joe, when he's pushing the water down, it's like they took that from Waterworld. Like that's that's probably the biggest bit that's very Fury Road. But even just
it reminds me of the art-inspiring and then it re-inspiring it back into itself. Where you had the Stranger Things thing being inspired by Stephen King and then inspiring Stephen King's future adaptations. We've seen maybe that happen with Waterworld, where this is a Mad Max knockoff on the water. And then the people, like George Miller must have watched it and been like, I don't know if he's ever talked about it. I would love to kind of go and find that. But he would surely love this kind of aesthetic. Even if he didn't love the whole movie, he must have loved what they were going for and seen it. And then maybe that bled back into Fury Road down the line.
Yeah, because
yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, because that the aesthetic, like as soon as it kind of begins and it's like, he's pissing into the thing and he's doing that the hack job, like he's just kind of like pushing levers and pulley systems and he's just kind of jumping across his boat. He's wearing that very like Mad Max but less kind of weird like mask kind of situation. Like, but the whole aesthetic of like every ship, every costume, all the things is so Mad Max inspired that like I don't know if George Miller would have to have seen it because you'd have to watch the movie that just was your movie but in water. But like I found it so weird that like there was a lot of elements that I felt like I enjoyed this more than the original Mad Max films. I thought the action was way more inventive and I felt like every second of the movie, like on a road, I'm like, but you can shoot on the road because it's like you go off the road and you can still have a car on the side of the road. Just all these things, I'm like, I can see how you would make it. Whereas this, when I first saw like 10 minutes into the movie, the castle fortress in the fucking middle of the fucking ocean, I was like, this is the greatest movie I've ever made. And I googled it after, and it's the most expensive movie of the time. And you feel it, man. I feel the budget. I looked up, I've written it down somewhere here. 157 days, according to Wikipedia, Kevin Costner was on set. 6 days a week. In the middle of the ocean, just shooting on these dilapidated boats. And I don't know, it's just... I thought I was going to enjoy hating this movie because I've heard a lot of like flack and it gets, it's like shitty Mad Max but on the water. But this movie, at least for the first 45 minutes, is fucking spectacular. And I craved it so much. I thought it was like... I don't know, just so inventive and wild and it was just so crazy. It was just so crazy to see so much action. And the world doesn't really make sense, I guess, but like, I didn't really care. I will
say this. I enjoyed this movie way, way more than I thought I would. And I have like a very good friend of mine, he kind of famously shits on this movie. I remember going and seeing a really terrible movie once with him, and he turned to me at the end and said, "At least it was better than Waterworld." And I didn't. like he hates Waterworld, and I want to really talk to him now that I've actually seen it, because I hadn't seen it until yesterday, and then I dive in and watch the longest cut I can, because the more I kind of looked into it, the more I went, oh, this looks kind of good, and then it starts, and like just watching him kind of maneuver and wrangle that boat reminded me of a kind of animated film, and this kind of fairy tale character on the water, almost kind of Miyazaki-esque, you know.
Oh no, you guys.
I was in and on board for it, and I think that this movie is only exists as a result of love for this kind of cinema and wanting to kind of recreate it and do it again. But I'm not sure that it ever grows enough into its own thing for me to really love it. I really kind of loved the feel of the movie, the sets, the costumes, all of these things, but none of the characters ever really kind of made me fall in love with them. Nothing in the plot really kind of felt new enough or interesting enough that I really got invested in it, but I kept waiting to be. Like I was engaged the entire movie, and I kept waiting to kind of really get hooked into it, and I feel like that you might need a George Miller, someone who's just crazy enough to put the really wild thing in to kick this movie up a notch, to do something new. And I don't know. All of it felt so familiar that I just wanted something different, and I thought it was, you know, the kid dynamic, but I even felt like the development with the kid could have been the kind of center point of the movie that really sold it, but the development of their relationship, just kind of one scene they hate each other, then they go for a swim.
He's going for a swim. He's suddenly swimming, and you're like, oh, they're best friends now.
Yeah, just immediately. And there's no real there's no progression. That relationship doesn't develop. It's just, they start swimming. There's no obstacle to overcome. There's no anything really, you know. None of it's bad. The performances aren't bad. What's going on in the movie isn't bad. It's all spectacular and big budgeted and everything. But I just can't help but feel like there was something lacking from it being a great movie.
Yeah,
this could have been a great movie that I kind of revisit a lot, and I don't know if I will. Yeah, I probably will. I probably will rewatch it at some point, because there was enough good here, but there were also a few decisions, like the bungee jump, which I gotta say that
hilarious.
Yeah, by that point at the movie, I guess when something like that happens, if everything was really working, like I was like, if Mad Max did this in Fury Road, I would probably be okay.
Well, I think the Mad Max Fury Road ending is not atrocious, but there is 3 shots in the end that are CGI blood rip-off face, CGI guitar, or maybe it's just those 2. But the first time I left that movie, I was like, oh, it like hit me gutturally with like. But now I watch it, and the movie is so good, and it's one of my favorite movies, and I love it so much that those bits at the end, I go, oh, remember that time that like almost ruined the film, and I left being like, did I even like that? Whereas now the movie is like, you know, it's so high that those bad issues don't take it from a 9 out of 10 to anything else. It's still like, if anything, it's more, because it's like you can have those moments I don't like, but I just love so much else. Whereas at the end of this movie, I was like, why did you do your epic set piece at the start of the movie instead of the end? Kind of felt a bit like that first 45 minutes, I was like, this is going to be the best movie I've ever seen. I was having so much fun. And then it really slows down. I watched it in 3 sections, and each section I felt got slower and slower. Because the second section was like, they introduced the element of fishing, and I was like, oh, he's fishing for like, it was like when Luke Skywalker's bloody getting the big fish and he's like drinking the milk, and I'm just like, I love seeing people do this with wacky wild creatures because it's just fun and awesome.
It makes the universe feel lived in.
Yes,
well.
yes.
That's
It's like
what
how
I loved about it.
My favorite fucking thing was, well, not my favorite, but like I love that at the start. It's like it's the future. The old pilot, ice polar caps, or whatever the fuck, they've melted and all that shit. But then it just starts, and he's just pissing in a bucket. He pours that piss bucket into a thing, and then he drinks the water. And I'm like, cool. I now understand how he lives. And I feel like that just did so much to make me go, this world is lived in. And then it started to just stagnate in that way a film does when your characters are kind of in that journey process between Act 1 and Act 2 and Act. It reminded me a bit of like when Harry Potter 7 goes and they're just in a tent for ages, and it's like it just movie slows way down, and you're either really on board for it and you're like you love it because of that, or like Waterworld, you kind of start going, are we going to get to another water city? Was that your whole budget?
Well, if this was Waterworld 7, then I would be totally cool for it to slow down and not really develop everything. But it's Waterworld 1.
Yeah. We're not obsessed with these characters yet. They haven't been. Yeah, no. That is a ridiculous comparison. But I just feel like the pacing really like I don't know. Yeah. But I did hate the girl at first, and then like the child, and then I really digged that like. I mean, I like throughout the movie, there was a lot of like, this is like Logan. This is the classic, I'm a brooding male and I'm going to throw the baby off board. And then by the end of the movie, he's like, I'll kill you for this baby because she's my friend. And I was like, oh yeah, I love it. Even though, I don't know, because before you said that like, the acting was good, I kind of feel like if this movie was entirely recast, it would potentially be better. I don't know. I don't know if Kevin Costner's like, he does like I liked his dad stuff, like with the kid, like when they were swimming. I was like, I like this. Like, I mean, I expected it to kind of develop more, but I enjoyed that kind of. I just love that he was like, I'm gonna throw her off board. Like when he's trying to escape the city, he's like, ditch the girl and help me, and like then he kind of turns around, but it just felt a bit like.
He felt more like Tom Hardy Mad Max than he did like Mel Gibson Mad Max.
Man, imagine if Mel Gibson was just in this. Wouldn't that be fucking wild?
I'll be totally on board for that. I reckon he would have.
That would, yeah.
But what you just said then, you could recast everyone and it might. Yeah, like you could. Yeah. This movie could be completely recast. I think you could swap most of it. I think you had at its core. I mean, Kevin Costner was the one who was really passionate about it, pushing it all forward and trying to... Seems like had the real vision for what the movie was going to be.
Yeah, so maybe...
And then the director's vision was much smaller, and he wanted a lot more of it stripped back. Because I just know there's a little bit more in the longer cut that... But I'm not sure that... from everything you're saying, we basically got the same movie. Yeah, it just sounds like there's a few different things.
Yeah, so like...
At the beginning of the movie, there's a character who steals his lemons or limes.
The first scene, his limes. Yeah, I was I just like flicked through this morning to kind of like just go, when you kind of like, oh, when did that scene happen? Because I was trying to think of a scene that I really liked. I'm like, I just want to rewatch that scene just to remember it perfectly. And I just flicked through the movie, and only then did I really think about it. And it's like, limes. The dude has a lime fucking tree, like... That just sucks, like you're in the middle of the ocean somehow, even though dry land doesn't exist. Spoilers, it does. But even though it doesn't exist in their minds,
it's Mount Everest.
Yeah, I have a bit of an issue with the end, but we'll get to that, I guess.
Yeah.
But I have a big issue with the end. But the fucking he has a lime tree at the start, and I love that he's like, he spits on, he's feeding and all that stuff, and it's like a big deal. But fucking limes, man, like. Can you imagine if the only fruit and the only tree that bared you fruit was a lime tree? It's just such a condiment, you couldn't, like if it was an orange tree, you just eat the oranges. You'd be like, I'm done for the day. I got an orange, like maybe a slice a day if I don't know, on his budget or whatever. But limes, man, like you take a bite and be like, I guess I'd rather not eat this. Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, I haven't been in a water world. Where nothing's free. But, also, the start of the movie has a line where he's like, nothing's free in Waterworld. And that almost ruins it for me. Because I was like, what do you mean you call it Waterworld? Because, like, what do you mean? Like, that's insane. Like, everyone's like, I just... Because they don't even know that the world existed before. Like, when they go down, which I love that scene, but when she goes down, she's like, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, no one knows. So it's not like... Yeah. It's not like they knew there was the world. They're like, this is now... I don't know. Something about that made me...
this is just the world.
Yeah, it's not the... It's just a world of water, but that's what your world is. I don't know. It's not like they were used to dry world, and now it's... I don't know. When he said that, I'm like, it's like a theme park in Westworld. They're like, it's Westworld, and it's Warworld. It's Waterworld. It's like... it hit cheesy, and then just took that one step further where I was like, oh, I don't know. But then he started sailing about, and I was like, did he really just swing from one side of that boat to the other? Because color me impressed. I don't know. Every time he did anything on the boat, like at one point, one of those smokers, like the bike rider dudes, they were like, I've never seen that before. I'm like, neither have I. That was awesome.
It was all the stunt work and all of the... I was floored by a lot of it. I thought the action set pieces in this were really, really good. I think that... Yeah, I don't know. I was on board for all that stuff. I think the first half of this movie really does a good job. And I can kind of see now why there's this, like, clear delineation of people who... Because there are people who love this movie, and then it seems like a lot of people who hate it. And I guess it makes a lot more sense now, because there's so much potential here. Like, this is... I don't know. There's so much really good stuff about this movie. It's a well-made movie for the most part.
Yeah.
It just feels like the movie's not really about anything.
It's an element missing, I feel like. It didn't decide to be simply a movie about a man who kind of takes on a foster family. In terms of, like, I really think that, like, I mean, I don't know. I usually don't try and watch movies in, like, sections. I think I did it with Dr. Sleep, watching it in, like, 2 parts, like, with, like, a 10, 20-minute break or something, just to do...
Yeah.
Get food. I can't remember. But this one was like, I don't know, it's super busy at the moment just with life and all that. But like yesterday I had, watched it in 3 sections. But like the first section, I had to pause it because I was like, I need to go tell my fucking brother to just start fucking watching this movie. It's the greatest thing ever. And then like the second half I was watching it and it just kind of, it slowly beat it into me. I was like, I could like totally pause this and start watching if we weren't going to talk about this. You know what I mean? Like, I just had that, I'm not... And then I was like, fuck, was I just like keen to like chuck something on because I'd had like a bit of a shitty day? But I was like, hasn't even been that shitty a day. I had a fucking day off work. I never have a day off work. That hasn't been that bad at all, really. I was just like, what is it? And it's like, there were so many little details in the first half that are just not spectacular, but like he goes into the little village, like in the sea and whatever. And apart from it just being spectacular visually and just kind of like, wait, how? What the fuck? Did they build this? Did they build this whole thing? It's like, and there's like interior bits where they're just talking, or I'm like, are they still just on that same bit of ocean? Because I saw a wide and like, it kind of would be insane not to still be there if you've built it. I don't know. It was really impressive on a filming technical kind of standpoint. And then there was also all these kind of like fun, like just amazing things. Like you see the big tree, and I was like, my first thought was like, what the fuck? What was that, a fucking tree? That doesn't make any sense.
How are they feeding it?
And then they fucking put in the body doing that creepy sermon thing you do when you walk into a new town in a western, and there's that old man who's like, dust and whatever, they're gonna be buried. I literally cannot remember that. From dusk to dawn? No, I don't know. Whatever that thing is they say, and like, they bury the body, and you're like, oh, it's creepy. They're burying bodies, and it's all sinister. But they push the body into that like swampy thing, and then like you're like, oh my god, it's like human fertilizer for the tree. And I don't know, that just blew me away. I was like, I don't know, I just love that so much.
And it sets up something a little bit later in the script, so it felt like after a few more scenes have gone by and they're going to drop him in there, it's like, that's why we got that little bit of setup.
Exactly.
Helps build the world. Feels like I think the whole first part of this movie, it feels very cohesive. It puts all the pieces in place. And it's probably, I guess it's the second act is that the kind of probably the failure of this movie. Not that I would even really point to anything specifically, other than just the lack of development of characters, especially given the amount of time we have, the fact that they're isolated and have a common kind of goal. I felt like it should have been very easy to just do the generic movie thing and develop these characters. And
yeah,
I guess there's just so many little opportunities where you see, here's a moment that these characters can have to bond that you missed, that is right there for the taking.
Yeah.
As they're traveling together, and instead it's like he stays like this like reclusive, cut off, I don't know, antisocial kind of mistrusting person the whole time, and then like the flick of a switch is in love with the kid.
Yeah.
And will risk his life and destroy the entire bad guy's ship to save. And then kind of just let them go live on an island together.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, maybe that's one of my biggest issues is that like they do.
And I think again, like there's a good line at the end where they're on land and he's talking to the kid. Mm-hmm. And I hope this was in your cut of the movie where they talk about it's just land sickness.
Yeah, like she's like, we've all got this. It's land sickness. It'll pass. He's like, no, it doesn't move right. I'm like, you've fucking been here 25 fucking seconds, dude. I mean, 40 years on water. You're gonna feel weird.
They've been on boats their whole life. I kind of liked how
he doesn't
the reversal of that.
No.
I guess your bearings would be all messed up.
Yeah. No, like I think that is true, but I just think that like because the film had decided to buckle down on, he has completely changed. He loves this girl, and then it's like. But then he's gonna go off and be the wandering loner man with no name mariner dude again. Like that just feels like I don't know. It like like in Mad Max, where at the end he's like, "I'll disappear into the crowd, and I guess I'll just go to another shitty town that doesn't have." What are you doing, Mad Max? That's insane. But
it's the same.
Part of me is like,
it's the same.
Well, that makes sense because like he's a weird Mad Maxy dude, and I don't know. He's all broken, and he didn't fully like. Fall in love and care about Furiosa and stuff. It's like team up survival style. Whereas in this, they at least I don't know. I don't think they did the groundwork, but the end product is that the kid is like he'd do anything for me, even though I said 10 seconds ago he'd kill children, and then he's like I'll do anything for her because she's my friend. I love that as well. That line where he's like she's my friend. I'm like oh shit, and the bad guy's like oh cry me a thing. You're gonna do it for my friend. My favorite villain bit. Which I usually hate in movies when they kill the guy when they're like, I won't kill you, and then they kill him anyway. It's like they have that scene, but I just love it where he's like goes to shoot the guy who's like out of the 2 prisoners that he didn't kill, and he's like, no, you said you wouldn't kill me, and he's like, oh shit, did I say that?
Yeah, I might have.
Oh fuck, I might have, and he realizes that he can't go back on his word, so he passes the gun to his henchman to kill. I thought that was really refreshingly fun for a movie made in like the 90s. I was like, what? Is this the reason we've never got this scene again? Because Westworld stole this scene? This is such a fun moment of like, I'm a man of my word. I will not kill you. But anyone else can kill you. That was fun.
This is the era of Dennis Hopper being the big bad villain and stuff. Like, I guess he was like I don't know, Mads Mikkelsen? Or, I don't know. Think of another. Who's that Australian actor? Ben Mendelsohn.
Oh yeah, he's Ben Mendo for sure. Because he
was
always
like the
villainous,
highest paid villain in Hollywood.
Was he really?
Probably for. Well, he was in Speed. He was in that Mario Brothers.
Oh yeah, I've never actually seen that. I've watched more YouTube videos on that than I think anything I've never seen.
I feel like there's a lot of other stuff that I can't think of right now, but Dennis Hopper during the 90s.
He is the dude in the movie on the bus, Speed.
Yeah, Speed.
Yeah. That's the one that I always think about. And then there's that other one where he's a manic dude as well, which I can't. He's in Day of the Dead, I want to say, which I think is. I think that's the first of the Dead movie that is kind of like. Here we go into kind of sequel territory, like because I feel like Night of the Living Dead is kind of classic for just what it is and what it's set up. Dawn of the Dead is actually pretty good. I don't like the makeup in that, but then it kind of starts being like, oh, this dude isn't the king of zombies, I mean, I don't know, in my opinion, but yeah, he's definitely the manic leader of a zombie resistance, or he's out to get the zombies, or I don't know, or he's a zombie. I literally can't remember, but he has that same like. Manic, wild kind of vigor to him. Is he in Apocalypse Now? Or is that? I feel like maybe he's the photographer in that as well. He's pretty good in that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
He's a really good performer. I really liked... I don't know, he's not given really anything, but I guess you're not really... I don't know, does a villain like this need anything? Like, I like that he gets his eye cut out and he's got a terrible line where he's like, we've got to... And he takes his bandana off, keep an eye out for that son of a bitch or whatever. And it's like, oh.
But then at other points he seems completely self-aware of the situation he's in. And it's like...
Yeah.
Would he be saying that?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if it wasn't Dennis Hopper, who's just kind of insane and kind of freaks me out visually, because I've heard so many weird stories and I just feel like he's got that kind of like, ugh, kind of crazy manic feel where I kind of was like, once he's in it, in a role without an eye, I just get what that character's going to give me and I don't expect more. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like half an hour in, I'm like, I know what he's going to do. I know how he's going to be. And then at the end, when he literally directs two of his guys to run into each other to kill someone, and then when the girl disappears, even though she could have like ducked her head as well under the water, and then they all crash, which is so stupid. So stupid. Like, it just... I don't know. That I was just on board at that point, but that is such a dumb way to kill the villains. But I feel like because of what I was presented with before that point, I wasn't like, oh, that finale. I just kind of laughed hysterically for a couple of minutes and then kind of sighed deeply. Like, oh, I guess that's the film I just watched.
Yeah, I was kind of just disappointed. I guess it was I don't know, the potential of this movie to me was just, it just slowly got more and more squandered as it went on.
Yeah.
And I guess I was up on such a high by like the middle point, I guess.
Yeah, man.
And then it's a series of half-baked or familiar,
cliches,
movie things that we've seen before.
It's all tropes, all cliches, and all kind of, well, not even that,
but it's
like
all
basic
very
shit.
well made.
Yeah.
And it's like not terrible enough to, I think, call a bad movie.
No. People who call this a bad movie just don't like water spectacle. Like, probably don't love Mad Max Fury Road. They just don't like the aesthetic of that, like, hobo-y world. That I don't know how to call it except for Mad Maxy. Like, it's just that hobshobble. Like, everyone's wearing like 7 different things at once. That's this one. Everyone's got the same grey brown feel. Every car is like, not car, sorry.
Everything's rusted.
Yeah, everything's rusted and yes,
broken.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that, I don't know, because I think that this movie's like, I'd say I like this as much as Fury Road. The other one, Road Warrior. In terms of like, it's a dystopian, post-apocalyptic world. I don't know, I think that maybe people don't appreciate, if they don't like this, they don't appreciate like the effort the filmmakers and like the production team went in, because except for the bit where he bungee jumps and the bit where the CGI monster gets caught in the fishing net, I literally cannot think of a scene where I was like, oh, there's a bit of 90s CGI, like it.
Oh, the underwater bit.
Shit! No, sorry, you're right. Yeah, but I love that.
That was almost done well. There were some shots which worked, and I think it was just the kind of matte and the movement of the characters through the environment that they didn't quite get properly. And it only stood out as much as it did because I think the rest of the movie looks so great, because you were at this like, the 90s was when like CGI didn't work, so when you used it, it really stood out, but that made them do all the real production stuff, and that's why we like everything that is real in this movie looks like fantastic.
Like spectacular. Like
the hot air balloon is probably one thing that looked a bit janky.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Off.
There
was probably some weird, but I don't know. Like even,
and again, it was just the implementation of it. Kind of it just felt like a matte painting. Yeah. Stitched onto like a real film frame, which is exactly what was probably the problem with the underwater scene.
Yeah.
But none of it like kind of terrible enough to like if those were the problems in the movie, just the kind of wonky effects here and there, but everything else worked, I would have been totally fine.
Oh yeah, no, like the like especially with the underwater scene. So I was just checking them what year it was, and it's I've already forgotten. 95 it came out, so they're making 94. So they were making this when I was 1 year old, and it's like I don't know, like those like the underwater stuff. I feel like that's like good, like not good enough. I think that's pretty fucking sick. Like in terms of at that time, that would have looked really good. And even now, like, I feel like my brain is, like, almost forcing me to be like, admit it, it's not the perfect shot, you know? But, like, in the moment, I wanted to see the dry world. I wanted him to reveal what I already knew. And I just loved the moment of, like, you know, and he's like, it only fits one. I'm like, what? But how's he? Oh, my God, because he's got gills. And just, like, I don't know, just, like, it was a beautiful kind of moment in the movie for him to be like, you shut the fuck up. You shut the fuck up with your dry world stuff. This is an obscene illusion. This is an obscene dream, and I'm going to fucking destroy your mind. And then he does. And then her response is, what the fuck? No one knows. He's like, no one fucking knows. And I really liked that as like a moment, but I think it is entirely ruined by, I don't know. You can probably explain that there's some higher mountains, but I didn't like that there was a dry world. Even though I guess it makes sense because the child was drawing ponies and all that stuff. But I don't know, when they got there, man, it was just so like, what the fuck? There are horses running about. There's like a village and a town. Like, all they did was go, let's go that direction. And then it implied it's like a night's travel. I mean, it could have been 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But like, they've been trapped on this water forever and no one's just gone in one direction for a while and found that island. It just felt so...
Well, they had the coordinates on the tattoo, yeah.
Yeah, all he really did with that tattoo was go up is down, north is south. So let's go that way. He just kind of points in a direction. Like, how many times have there not been like your wild Captain Jack-esque pirates in this universe who've just gone, fuck everything, I'm just going to go in this direction. And they just never found anywhere. I don't know. I just felt like it was so like... I love the idea that the whole world is just water and then they got this dry world. Because of course there's like this myth of the dry land. But for me, the movie would have been so much more epic if it had sailed off into the distance and then it had cut. Like we'd seen the horizon and like, I don't know, more of like an... I don't know. I'm saying that now and maybe I'd be annoyed, but when he said on his boat, like they're up in the air and the world's been saved, all this stuff, and then he goes... Something, we'll be able to find dry land in no time. And I just was like, that's going to be the end of the movie. They're going to go. And then I kind of liked the little girl, like, she was like, this is my home. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. They brought her home. That's nice. But I don't know, the whole universe of
the idea of tattooing a baby, I don't know, when I thought about it, I was like, that's weird. But...
Oh, yeah, no, it was really bizarre to see a child with a tattoo. Because
and then they get there and it's bones, so they've been dead presumably since this child was like a very small infant.
Yeah, I don't want to pull up the bones because I'm not a bone expert, but I can guarantee that your human body does not decay. It would take centuries. Maybe not centuries, but it's taken fucking... There is no fucking skin on those bones.
That kid's like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah, man, it is so stupid.
7 or 8, maybe.
But it's like, they were like, well, we can't do a realistic corpses. That'd be horrific. We've put this movie to an R rating just to show that's it. So I can totally... I don't know. There was something about that ending that made me go like, like, that's easy. Like, I mean, I'd have to...
Well, it was easy. And then they did the most obvious thing by saying this is the peak of Mount Everest. It's like, it's like a dumb kid would say.
Okay, so that...
Like, if they saw this movie and they're like, what do you think the end would be, Johnny? And he'd be like, they'll find the dry land and it'll be the tallest place on Earth, Mount Everest. Yeah, like... Isn't that just the silliest thing you can think of?
This is the trouble with watching a movie and then being like, you know, just, I don't know. Because we've got so much more time on our hands. This whole quarantine kind of situation, self-isolate. It's like I'm watching a lot of stuff and just kind of like, I don't know. It's like I watched it, but like you're saying that Everest thing and I'm going, fuck me. I literally cannot remember if that was a scene or if it was one of the extended scenes. but I feel like that might be an extended bit because them saying Everest, I'm like, I don't remember a moment where that would have been
No,
possible to say.
they uncover a a statue or like a monument, and it says summit of Mount Everest.
Oh my god, I do not. I'm gonna.
So that might have been in the extended cut because that is right near the scene, which brings up the Ulysses connection, which is why it's called the Ulysses cut, and it's basically just all of the extra footage that. And I could actually tell there were a couple of scenes where, because the footage was only aired on TV, it looked like it was HD still, but it was just slightly lower quality.
Oh,
and I was like, I can tell this part is an extended scene and not part of the original. But everyone online said the extended one, if you're going to watch the extended one because it just builds the world a little bit more and you get a little bit more detail. And but okay, so the Everest thing was that. But I mean, they shot that, and that was originally intended to be in the movie. So I guess the director made the right decision there with the theatrical cut then, which maybe leads me to believe it's Kevin Costner making the silly decisions. Because also, Joss Whedon was flown in as a script doctor on this movie. So this was back when Joss Whedon did a lot of script doctoring work on big movies. This was the 90s, so he also did work on the first Toy Story movie.
Yeah, didn't he write that? No,
he was one component in like a very large writer's room, and even about Waterworld, he spoke of the fact that when he said he was brought in to do rewrites, it was just brought in and listened to Kevin Costner's ideas.
Oh, interesting.
So he was not Joss Whedon with all the kind of, what do you say, clout that he had in the early 2000s.
He had before he completely lost all of it.
Did he? I guess he did.
He got kicked off Batgirl because of his womanizing. So I think that's as much like that's losing your clout in terms of Hollywood. Like you're on a movie and then they're like, you're not allowed to do movies anymore. But he's doing a show about strong female teenagers, so he's back to his basics. Not that I think that'll ever actually get made now. I mean, obviously it's not getting made now, but before the world ended, I think that was still not getting made potentially.
Well, Joss Whedon, I think for a long time, his voice was very like refreshing and
refreshing.
And that's why he was a script doctor on so many movies, was because
bringing that take in, yeah.
Well, yeah, he would roll in and be like, "Oh, put some quippy dialogue in your movie."
It doesn't feel Joss Whedon-y at that point. Whereas I feel like after Avengers 2, that was the peak and the burnout.
Avengers 1 was the peak.
Sorry, yes,
better phrasing. Yeah, and then Avengers 2 was the descent where you're like, I think I can see the code that you write things by.
Yes.
I can see the Matrix, when it comes to Joss Whedon.
And you can still appreciate it. Like they do in the Matrix. They're like, wow, look at that ninja flip when they're looking at all that fucking text. But at the same time, still looking at the text. Not as cool as if you could just see the ninja flip, you know? And I think that is definitely where he's at with me. I think maybe the guy who's doing devs has like a 10% case of that. Are you watching devs? Because
I am watching devs.
I'm 4 or 5 episodes in, and I don't want to say anything because I'm not sure. I feel like any second we haven't seen is a big spoiler, but that show has so many little elements where I'm like, like in Annihilation, like an Ex Machina, and it's just I can kind of I feel like I get what he wants to do, and through the 3 stories he's told so far, I'm like, this has happened to you, and this is why you want to talk about it. I feel this really strong sense of like the past.
It's his style, or his voice.
It's, and not to say like, and with Joss Whedon, I feel like I'm maybe a bit more negative now. Like if his new show came out, I'd be like, Whereas with devs, I'm like, I don't think I'm up to the newest episode, but that's just because I don't know, I'm still busy with work, and I don't have the emotional effort to watch something that is so fucking harrowing. That third or fourth...
No, you're almost up to date. Episode 6 at the point of us recording is out.
Yeah, are you up to date?
I've watched 6.
Yeah. And still presumably without saying anything, fantastic and just probably the best show on TV right now.
Yeah, I mean, but then there are a couple of little moments in the show where I'm like, and I actually rewatched it because my partner watched episode 6 with me and was like, "What is this? Why didn't you tell me about this?" And then I rewatched it all.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And after rewatching it, after the illusion is kind of taken away, and you know what the show is now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a very different show to watch.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, like more surprising than I thought. I thought it would be, I'm just going to rewatch this again and I'll pick up most of it. But the kind of tone and the mysteriousness is really like a big part of the first 2-3 episodes.
Yeah.
And when that's all gone, he's really just like telling you everything.
Oh, interesting.
Like, there's a lot more, like, I don't know, things that, like, characters that are together, it's like, oh, that's why those two are where they are. And yeah, I don't know. You just reframe it all.
Are you enjoying it less or more, do you think, with the
rewatch? I enjoyed it. I just kind of, I guess I thought, oh, this show's a lot more simple than I thought it was. Maybe I thought there was more going on than there was, but...
I think episode 4 had a moment where I went, oh, the show's about this. I think maybe we're clearing the shroud of mystery, if you will, you know? Like, I'm kind of wiping away, you know, the smog, and I can kind of see the theme of what they're trying to, like, say. I mean, I could be wrong, but the first 2 episodes, I was like, what's with the creepy giant daughter statue? And now I'm like, yeah, I get that. Super creepy still, for sure. But at first, I'm just so like...
Have you seen the episode where it kind of plays through other realities and you get the double up on the screen?
No. Is that... Okay. Oh, maybe I've only watched 4 then. Fuck, I don't even
think that's
know.
episode 5,
right?
And it starts getting
because there was the episode where it was like it's the flashback epi, but usually that's epi 12 out of 13, not like 4 out of
8.
Out of 8. Oh, okay. I thought it was out of 8 makes sense. But it was like, I mean, fuck. I can't place it fully, but it was just kind of the realization where it was like, oh, the show's about this and him trying to do this. And then it was like, the last episode I saw was like the young girl was like, she didn't speak with Jesus, but she's like, that's Jesus's voice. And then he's like, that's not Jesus's voice. That's not my Jesus. That's a multiverse Jesus. And I was like, what is happening? But I'm just, I don't know. I just think the mood and the feel, and like, there's those bits where it's just like, and it has that kind of grumbly, and I'm like, that's a fucking soundtrack. You know, like, I don't know. So many episodes start, and the episode started, and all their faces were just like colored in these gels, and it just cut to their faces, and I was like, I don't even know what I was looking at, but it was kind of like Annihilation, where I'm like, I'm just happy to watch this man create content and say stuff. Because I remember a lot of people were like, Ex Machina feels very focused, and Annihilation, it's like, what is he trying to say? And it's like, well, isn't that you know?
And I
you
thought
shouldn't
that
be
the
like
first time
focused.
I watched.
Yeah.
I actually, when I rewatched Annihilation again, I think it became much clearer, and that he's working both with like high concept science fiction and also this is fantasy. And the line between which they're blurred is like very interesting, and it just depends on what the discussion is that day. I don't know, or in that episode, or in that movie, or whatever it is. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It feels as surreal as it does, grounded in reality, and it's very kind of confusing, and I don't know. It's all the execution, because I guess when you strip away all of the execution of the Alex Garland movie or TV show, what you're left with concepts that we've been talking about a lot and thinking about a lot. And like, you know, Devs is about tech and big tech companies and these giant organizations with huge amounts of power, gathering huge amounts of data on people. And they are literally creating devices that are predicting people's buying habits and predicting, you know, how the stock market's going to go. And this is just that turned up all the way. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's give a tech company a device that can look at everything.
Yeah. Because for me, it feels like this weird, like, at first I was like, oh yeah, this is, you know, I was kind of into it. The first episode didn't like hook me. And then when it kind of revealed that was more like a setup epi, you know. and it was like, oh, this is the main character, not that other person, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was
And
kind
then
of,
when
I was.
That's another thing when you rewatch it. It doesn't seem anywhere near as much like he's going to be the main character.
Right, yeah, because it felt like they kind of did a Psycho, you know? Like...
It does. I got that the first time I watched it, but the second time I watched it, I'm like, oh, she is the main character. She is the main character from episode 1.
Right,
are just assuming. I mean, they give them both the same amount of screen time.
Yeah, right, really, yeah.
Maybe he does maybe get a little bit more in the first episode because we follow him with what's his face, but she gets.
If you told me she wasn't in the first episode, though, I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of how I remember it. Like he's in the first one, and then the second episode, and you're like, oh, I guess she's. But
she gets a few
yeah.
scenes.
Yeah, she does.
And she is the main, I would say, driving force of it. And we get a little scene where she's counting numbers with the other girl, and they set up how smart she is.
Yeah,
and I guess it just seems like because she kind of goes running to the other guy, and like, can you help me? I don't know.
Yeah, like I think what you're saying about execution over like the actual substance of the story, and the execution makes you kind of feel like you're like consuming this incredibly, I don't know, not to say it's not deep or something, but it's like that ending of the episode where it's just like she gets taken away, twist at least at that point, she's actually crazy. And they're doing her for that craziness, and she's getting fucked on. And then the dude, the creepy like murderer kind of like bodyguard guy, just walks into the house, and you get that weird wide shot where he just walks across the edge of frame right in the distance, strangling the dude, and then he just walks back into frame after like 10 seconds, turns the lights off or whatever, or closes the blinds or something, and then just walks back out of frame. That made me so... I felt so much emotion, just so scared and so like... Yeah, like the way he's making the show is so fantastic. And at least what I like from like that kind of deep, fucked up, not a fun show to watch kind of show. And it's really well kind of crafted in a lot of its elements. And that, I don't know, I'm really digging it, even though it's like a weird, like, we've got technology that is just stupidly impossible. And then someone like clicks a button and now it's like, crystal clear, and it's essentially just a man who just wants to see his daughter again, but they're using all this tech company thing. I don't know, it feels like there's so much going on, you know. I mean, bringing it back to Waterworld, believe it or not, but Waterworld feels like a man learning to care about his stepdaughter, you know what I mean? That's it essentially, but it doesn't really feel like they do enough to make it that. And the whole Waterworld aesthetic, maybe you should have focused on that rather than a deep character story, because the world is so entertaining. Whereas in like Devs, I love the story it is telling, and then this huge big world where I feel like you don't have to fully get into it and fully show me everything in this world, because I'm mostly interested in her revenge and Nick Offerman's, you know, kind of bereavement of his daughter.
Well, yeah,
and I think it's handled so well. Like the moment he's like, "Fuck this new technology, fuck it into the ground, you're fired." And she's like, "What the fuck? You fired me?" Also, at one point they say she's a guy. I'm like, what? Okay, I'm not gonna get into this. It's fine. Thought it was just a girl for some reason. I'm
glad we're both confused about that.
Yeah, good, because it's a girl, right? I don't know. And then I was like, maybe this is a whatever. It doesn't matter. But I thought that actor or actress, character person was really good. And the heartbreaking moment where like the big kind of nerdy guy who was watching the porn in that scene was like, "You've got to go. He will murder you." I'm like, what the fuck? This is so scary and intense. And yeah, it's all execution, I find. I mean, I've completely forgotten about Waterworld now. I'm thinking about Devs being like, God, it's... You know what else I'm fucking watching at the moment? I feel like the only two shows I'm watching are Devs and Westworld. So many worlds. Oh my God. You didn't even finish season 1, did you? Or did you?
No, I didn't. I got a few episodes into season 1, and then there was some reveal, and I was like, I don't care.
You would have got to episode 7, because episode 1 to 6, unless I mean, it could be a bit off, but 1 to 6 is like setup, 7, 8, 9, 10. 7, 8, 9 is like reveal. All of them are really obvious and really like convoluted, and then 10 is like, okay, but I've rewatched it like a couple of years ago, just before 2 started. And holy shit, it's season 1. Because I hated it at the time. I was like, this is such a good show. Exactly like Waterworld. It's like a beautiful concept. It looks rich. The music's great. Everything's great. But something about the story is like, fuck, the story does matter. Like, you know, you can have all these boats sailing around shooting a castle in the ocean. It can all be 100% real.
Matter.
The characters fucking matter. They really, really matter. So if you mystery box it like Westworld does, or you kind of generic, I don't know, like in Waterworld, that lady who's like the main lady, there were 2 or 3 moments where I was like, hey, I don't hate you. I feel bad for hating you earlier. But I'm just still left with this, like, what is she? Like, who is she? Like,
what is she? Yeah.
She's just sexy lady with the daughter character. And as soon as as soon as Kevin Costner is like, throw the daughter overboard, it's like, okay, so he's starting here and he's going to end here with her. And they do. And whether or not it's well crafted, but she's just there. I did kind of like the scene with, I know I didn't like it, but I did like the idea of like, yeah, but it's not even developed. I was going to say, I love the bit where they meet the super creepy dude and he decides he's going to sell her, even though he doesn't really own her. She's like, you know, she helped him escape. It's not like he kidnapped her while escaping. It's like she helped him escape, but then he's going to betray her and sell her as a sex slave to this fucking manic creep, the creepy guy from Sons of Anarchy, who's just always a creep in everything. He's been very typecast. He looks like a creep. When he appeared in this movie, I'm like, is this the original movie he was in that typecast him forever? Because he's still got that weird glisten where it's like his eyes always feel like he's just put that inch bit too much eyeliner on. Fucking Google him in every movie and he's the eyeliner guy. He's just got that campy kind of feel. He's gross and slimy. I really liked him in this though. This made me kind of go, I see why he's that guy in all those other fucking films. Like to the point where I was all, I don't know. I thought that was good and like kind of interesting that he like sells her off like kind of on a whim and then realizes, but it feels like there's nothing really to like, you know, like she goes down. It's not like he looks at the girl and the girl looks at him and is like, you son of a bitch. I don't know. It's like, it's really just him going, yep, you can have her because this world is brutal. And then he just goes, oh wait, no, I'm the anti-hero. You know, it's like, because at the start of the movie, he lets that dude who stole his limes get murdered. But that dude stole his fucking limes. That's all he has. He was robbed, and then he let other people murder him. That's like that's the perfect anti-hero. That's the character you want to follow. He'll do the tough things, but he's not the worst cunt in the world. But they never really have those little moments to make you go, yep, this is his villain to hero, anti-hero kind of, I don't know, like, yeah, one of my favorites is always Spike from Buffy. His transition to anti-hero is so good because he's literally forced to do it. A chip is put in his brain, he's forced to not be a cunt. And only when he realizes he can harm villains because it won't fuck with his brain, with like the chip will only hurt him when he tries to hurt good people. So he realizes he can hurt bad people, so he becomes a good guy because of that. It's like, I don't know, it's just like a beautiful twist on the anti-hero thing. I think Sawyer's a really good example. There's just so many good versions of that. When you see it done haphazardly, it feels cheap. Yeah, maybe that's one of my biggest issues with this movie is like, he's this anti-hero man with no name, mariner, drifter boy. But they don't really... Yeah, I don't know. There's no transition period. Like when he gets to that town, he doesn't have a scene where he saves that lady from like a shitty guy in town or anything. Or he just kind of sees that they are also in the town. You know what I mean?
I just don't think I could really explain who any of the characters are in this movie because they all kind of do one thing, say another, don't really... I don't know, like, the only person who seemed to have any kind of code was the villain. And then everyone else is just kind of doing the thing in the moment. And I guess trying to survive. And, I mean, we don't really know what the main character's goals and objectives are or, like, what he really wants other than just to survive and, I guess, be left alone. He's just a drifter. He just wants to go and trade stuff and...
Yeah.
I don't know, swim to the bottom of the ocean, pick up all the old shit from there and then sell it to people living on the top. I mean...
I've just had a sudden realization. He's a fucking mutant man and there's no explanation as to how he's a mutant man. There's no... anything. There's no...
There's lots of things like that though. There's like the whole movie is a collection of
thoughts.
Like, these are things that happen in movies, but we haven't thought them through, and we haven't thought about how they impact our characters. So we have Mutant Guy, and we have... we have the...
There are giant fish whale monsters that don't look human. I paused on the horrific green screen composite matte painting, whatever the fuck they did, and it doesn't look like a real creature, you know? It's like big sea monster. How did the sea monsters happen? All that happened was that the world was flooded. If the world flooded right now, we don't get sea monsters. We don't get that reward. You know, that doesn't make any fucking sense. So it's like, what are they? Yeah, but I don't need that explained. But maybe some kind of, I don't know, just a little bit more. You know, just like, yeah. I feel like almost every part of the film just has that. I just want to.
Is missing 20%. Every part of the film, except for the production value, except for the sets, except for that stuff.
It looks so good.
Which is all great. Everything else is like, it's like they spent all the money here and they didn't worry about the story that they were trying to tell. They were worried about selling the spectacle, which they do, and it keeps you going. But you know what? It's actually kind of one of these movies that seems like it would be the perfect movie to get like a reboot or remake of, because it's so close to being great, and I can see them doing it now with a mix of all the practical effects.
Fury wrote it for sure.
Yeah, and then you enhance it, and you can add a lot more now. You can add a little bit more spectacle with the CGI that we have, but still keep it grounded. I think what makes the movie work is that you like believe this guy's piloting this boat,
because he must be doing that, because
it feels so organic.
Really
the way it moves, the way it kind of, but it probably doesn't make any sense in reality. Like it's just a sailboat, but there's like a big thing that comes out, and it's a little bit spectacular. But
I mean, it's
you know what I mean.
It tricked me. You're saying that, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I don't actually know a thing about boats, so he could be selling in the wrong direction. But it really sold me. Like, there's a bit really early on, like 5-10 minutes in, where he's on the back of the boat just sailing it, and it's a kind of a mid-shot wide where you see the whole boat in the ocean, and he's just smashing the ocean. You know, he's just going through the ocean, just really sailing. And at least for me, I was like, that dude is proper sailing that boat. I don't know. It's like, I mean, and you're saying all these things. I'm like, I mean, I could rewatch it or like look behind the scenes and be like, oh fuck, I'm so gullible. But it totally got me in, and I started this movie without that. Like, I mean, I always try and start a movie positively, but I started it and was like prepared to be like, put on the, just get ready to sit back and kind of have fun with something that's really bad. Because I've heard atrocious things about this movie, which I think are so brutal and so unfair. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm looking at the poster on my DVD cover and I'm like, yeah, that movie looks pretty silly.
Jack Black was the pilot of the plane.
So he is in this, because
he speaks. He's the pilot of the plane, and then the guy shooting the gun gets shot with an arrow by the chick, and then the plane like spins around.
Yeah, right. Because I feel like Because I feel like at a point in the movie, I was like, what the fuck? But I guess the movie just moved on, and I just didn't really properly process that. So is this real?
I didn't know until after. Yeah, I didn't realize it was him when I was watching it.
Is this? Yeah, because it's just so weird you say that, because you're saying a character that I feel like is the different character than I thought it was. But part of me is like, yeah, I feel like I saw him in this movie, but then was like, I don't know. It was, yeah, that's so weird. It's so weird when like a huge actor has got like this tiny bit role in a movie where you kind of like, you get the sense this is before they are who they kind of are now, because they just wouldn't be in this movie like that. Like Neil Patrick Harris is just that side fucking awful lieutenant military dude in Starship Troopers, and it's like, that's just not a role he'd have now as an adult. Oh, actually, I don't know, maybe it is. But I don't know, just when you see someone, you're like, this is before they are the man we know of them. And it's so cool when you see that. Like when you see Jackie Chan, he's just the stunt dude, and you're like, what the fuck? That's fucked. Something I thought was like, I don't know, I was just thinking of Jackie Chan. It's like the stunt coordination in the water for some of the set pieces was so cool. Like there was a bit where like the rope like was going through the ocean, like the net kind of rope that was moving through trying to crush stuff, and the way he would he's like, let's all move to this side, and he's got that thing, he pushes the cage thing down, they all kind of lean to the side, and he's like pushing back, and the whole ship lifts up. I mean, that's definitely on the side of you're making me believe, but I bet you it doesn't work like that kind of situation. Yeah. But fuck, it just felt like he was really doing it. I really feel like you don't get that in movies. Like even in Fury Road, part of my brain is like, they didn't really do that because you can't do that. Whereas in this movie, except for when the fish came out and the boat, the ship, like the plane, was in it, I was really just like, well, you have to have done it because I'm watching you do it, and you can't visually effects trick me at this point in the world. I mean, maybe I'm a bit wrong, and maybe you can. There was, there could have been a few cheats in there, but he
was obviously very comfortable,
riding
moving around that boat,
sailing. Yeah, he jumps across it and stuff on the. It's very piratey the way he swings about and like he moves, and I don't know. I was very impressed.
I'd say lean more into all of that. I mean, if I remake this movie, the whole beginning is just maybe an encounter with one other person where you like raise the tension and you get like a big sailing. You just show off how good a sailor this guy is on his own and how he uses this thing. And that's what this movie does really well. Like the mechanical, technical aspects of the film are done really well. And that is the best way that his character is informed. Through the stunt work. Because all of that stuff's so good. So I think we kind of get tricked into there's more here maybe. I don't know. Yeah. He doesn't say very much, but just, I guess, seeing how well it's all done, you're like, oh, the character's going to follow. Like the writing will be as good as the amount of money that they've put into this, and it just doesn't pan out that way.
Absolutely isn't. I think that this, because I didn't even consider as I was watching it, what would this look like as a remake? Because I was just so blown away by the fact movies don't really look like this anymore. But something about this film that I love is like it does, like, I mean, obviously we said that the whole Mad Max thing, the idea that they've based it off Mad Max like visually and they were inspired by it. It's like, well, of course they were. Of course they fucking were. You can feel that as you watch it. But it's something that I never thought was like when you watch Road Warrior, it has the same feel as this. It's gritty, it's dirty, the cars feel like they're actually on the roads driving. But Mad Max Fury Road is like that. But the aesthetic, like especially when we were rewatching the last time I was at your house, the fucking like, it's such a different aesthetic visually, like the color palette, the actual feel of the world, even
teal
though
and orange.
Yeah, exactly. It's all teal and orange. It's not that gray kind of like realistic, like non-color paletted changed look. It just feels like they shot it and then they just put it on a camera. I mean, put it on the computer and then that was it, And I would actually love, I mean, not necessarily teal and orange, but I would love to see a modern take on this, and instead of being like it's one car chase, just one boat chase. Make this a boat chase, like like have him get to that town at the end or at the start. I don't know, but like this, this you could do so much, but would it then be so easy to slip into the CGI Marvel-y kind of new Terminator, and then you've really got to pick a director, because this franchise or this movie doesn't have like George Miller he made all the Mad Maxes, so it's like you have that vision coming into this new 20 years later kind of aesthetic that films look like now. So he took that orange and teal look that is all movies and kind of fitted it into Mad Max, so he wasn't overwhelmed. I still think the CGI at the end of that movie is atrocious, but there is so much in that movie that I wouldn't have thought was CGI. So you see the behind the scenes and you see all the compositing of all the things, and you're like, oh, the mountains aren't even. Oh my god, this whole film is fake. All the rocks, everything is fake, and only really until we watched it most recently at yours with the biggest TV ever were we able to notice those things. But the difference with watching on such a screen is like on your screen, I see that Thanos has hair on his head, whereas on my computer, which is a 5K computer, it's like he doesn't even have that hair. He's only got the stubble on his beard, so it's like. Like it really is depending on where you watch it and how you watch it. But I don't know if Waterworld, like, who would you bring in? Like, Could you think of a director?
Someone crazy. Because I don't want anyone playing shit safe. I want someone who thinks outside the box.
Yeah.
Who's probably going to make some missteps too, because this universe is pretty wild.
Yeah.
But I want the person who's not. This movie was the casting for the director was wrong. You know, more than anything else, maybe. Like, they got the wrong director for Waterworld. They needed someone who was crazier, who wasn't going to do kind of by the numbers, but also this high concept Mad Max-esque. You are misunderstanding that if you are playing it safe with everything else. You know, I want that. I want the plot. Like, the plot of Mad Max is as crazy as all of the machinery surrounding it. It's like Immortan Joe and his like brides that he keeps chained up, and there's like all these women getting milked, and there's all this crazy. And there's a little bit of it in Waterworld, but they didn't really double down. And then there are like little hints, and he's a mutant, and we think we might get more of it. But and there should have been why wasn't there a city of mutants? And he's I don't know, like you want to see those bold swings, and sometimes misses as opposed to playing it safe, and because that's really the worst this movie can be. Is not like brilliant or terrible. It's like we're just riding the line in the middle.
Because I think that I don't know, like. This kind of movie, I feel like I want to see, like... I mean, I don't know if you could go as far as him riding those sea creatures, but, it's like, I want to see... I don't know, it's like... I didn't really like it, I mean, at all, but Aquaman was so stupidly insane and had so many ideas, I kind of just had to, like... Not had to, I kind of just embraced and enjoyed, like... how much we were getting. They're like, there's a sea world and everyone's a fish man and they're green. They're all crabs here because they're really like close to the bottom of the earth, so it's really fucked with them. And
I remember having a conversation with someone about Aquaman, and they were like, oh, fuck this and fuck that. And I was like, have you ever read an Aquaman comic? Like, are you serious? The fact that this movie exists is like, so good. I mean, if you're a fan of that, you got what you wanted, I think. I mean, I haven't read a lot, but the ones I've read, I don't know, I thought the movie was maybe the most comic book movie ever.
Yeah,
in some ways. Yeah. Like, in just its raw ability to like double down in the crazy Aquaman lore. But then they also play Toto's Africa when they go to the desert.
Holy shit, do they actually?
Yeah, and it's like a terrible cover by like Pitbull.
Oh, that's probably why I don't remember it, because like the original was in my head, but yeah, you know what I'm saying. The cover.
Yeah, but then there's like, I don't know, but then it's got that James Wan like super wide angle, really interestingly directed action set pieces, and
yeah.
You know, I kind of dug Aquaman, but also was like maybe completely indifferent to a lot of it.
Because I was just thinking, it's like in terms of manicness, I think maybe you take a bit of shine off, like you take away $50 million from him. But it's James Wan who directed that, yeah?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind see him try and do a Waterworld, because like clearly he knows how to handle a budget, a big crew, a big star, all the things. Because there's a scene in Aquaman where he's running across the top of like some town in Italy or some shit, and there's like one or two shots in that are just so awesome, as like the red water henchmen boys in their like scuba suits, the out of water scuba suit kind of things.
And then Black Manta rocks up.
Yes. Oh,
and he's shooting lasers,
lasers out of his eyes, and it's like blowing shit up, and it like you're following him chasing
1960s costume.
Yeah,
I was like, what is this? This is so wild.
But it's shot like really well. It's not like, hey, this is dumb and stupid, so let's make it dumb and stupid. It like it's like it's stupid, but it's elevated by incredible filmmaking, and like that. I don't know.
The Aquaman movie he made should not have Jason Momoa in it though. It should have.
Well, what about okay? Well, who like? You want a different type of...
Just straight from the comic Aquaman.
Yeah, less...
He doesn't fit. He fits the Zack Snyder...
Stupid,
where he was cast.
What was that fucking...
During... Batman v Superman, and he should be in like a grey suit and look all like gruff and evil and whatever.
Yeah.
And I love Jason Momoa. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like he kind of he's got that really likable personality, but I'm not sure that's what Aquaman should be.
Oh yes, great. I wrote some quick notes because there's always that little thing in the movie where you're like, that is so dumb, and I have so much to say, but there's no way I'll remember it because like I just don't actually care enough. But like when we're talking, so the monster. And I paused it and I went back a bunch of times because of course I did, because the monster he's like fishing and then it's a monster and I'm like, oh my god, that's so good. Imagine if it just been a fish. The fucking monster is so big, it's like the size of a bus. Let's say a bus, like a bus size. Then later on, he's like cooking the food and it's like all the food feels, he's putting the food on, he's like, you enjoy it? And they're all eating. It's like, yeah, that feels like the blubber is the right size. Then he gets a fucking eyeball out. And I am presuming that the monster has 2 or 4 eyeballs. The eyeball is just kind of normal, like our eyeball size. And he's holding it, he squeezes it, he eats it. And the whole scene, I'm like, this is so fucking annoying. Because let's talk about why this movie sucks.
You were so close.
It's this scene in particular that is the epitome of why this movie sucks. It would have been so fucking awesome if he'd imagine the size of his head, a gross big old eyeball, and he cuts into it with a knife and fork. It explodes with juices. He's loving it because he's like, man, it's hard to catch one of these big fish. These goddamn chicks don't know what it's like to catch a fish this big. And he's enjoying the eyeball and they're all like, that's gross, and then maybe later on in the movie when him and the girl, like the child, are friends, she like eats an eyeball with him or something. I don't know, maybe that's terrible, but that eyeball thing, I was just like, that sucks. Why the fuck is that eyeball human eyeball size? That means that
even smaller. My memory.
Yeah, real small. Sure. Yeah, like
I can't believe I didn't notice that when I was watching.
It was just such a moment of like, okay, so you're implying that fish's eyeballs are like 1 to the scale of 20,000 for its body, and I'm no scientist, biology doctor, man. I'm definitely not. Like, don't quote me, but that's fucking stupid. It's stupid. Yeah. Why? How does it work? Is it blind? Then why does its eye need to be like when I paused it? Do you mean in like the?
Yeah.
No, it's way too 90s CGI compositing to pause it properly.
Right.
It's like it's like the Buffy snake in season 3. It's unwatchable to look at, but it's the concept that takes it over the line. It's the fact they chose to do it even though they shouldn't have, which I have to respect and love.
If that was a big practical fish creature, it would have been so good. It would have been...
No, yeah, I couldn't... I mean, I kind of, because it's in the film for so little, I do... like if I was making this movie and they're like, you have to cut one giant practical effect, and can it be the 2 seconds of the fish monster rather than the 40-minute set piece with the castle? It's like there are moments where I'm like, okay, I see why you've decided that to be... the effect, they're not practical effect, but fuck, I don't think I'd have a single bad thing to say about this movie if they had Tremors this and just had a giant fish explode out of the water, Jaw style. Like, but then again, the film's not good enough for me to expect that. So when I don't know. I'm just having a look at like all my notes because my note had monster eyeball was so small Y, and that's pretty much my only major note on here. Yes, there's one more note. He cuts their hair. What the fuck? So, it's a weird power flex. Like, it's a weird kind of like...
When she pisses him off.
Yeah, and then he cuts her hair. Then the child, like, says something. And instead of even seeing it, it just cuts to him looking at her. And then smash cut to both of them sitting there, hair cut. It's like... It is shot and played for laughs, I feel. Like, he cut their hair. It's so weird, man. Cutting their hair like that is such a... aggressive, like, it's such a, I don't know, it feels really weird. It's a moment in the film that feels kind of like out of place, like really, really out of place. But I feel like it was trying to say something.
Because hair's valuable, or is that part earlier in the movie?
Wait, when's that? No, I don't remember that. It might be.
Maybe that's in the extended cut. So when we're introduced to the city, in Act 1, And they're guarding it. There's people in the boats around the city, and there's like old people in boats, and they're like, "I'll give you all my hair for a cup of hydro," you know. And he's like grabbing all his hair, and offering to cut it off. And then the two guards sitting at like the city outpost thing are like, "Yeah, it's a pretty good deal. He does have a lot of hair," but they're like, "Don't get too close," you know. And then Kevin Costner rocks up.
Okay, I am 99.9% sure that is not in the movie. Cause
that seems like it would be an additional scene, and that's what they talk about, where it's more world building.
Yeah,
and that's the only thing I could kind of think of. Apparently, the relationship between Helen and Kevin Costner is developed more, but I found it severely undeveloped, and I watched the 3-hour cut. So
okay, well, it's not developed really at all. There's the scene where she's like, "Oh, so you want to throw the daughter overboard? How about you have sex with me and don't do that?" And he's like, maybe. And then he's like, "Maybe not though, because I'm a man of honor." And then later on, she's like,
she flinches, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like, you didn't want me.
Yeah, and then later she's like, "Oh yeah, well that's so." And then she kisses him, and you're like, "Oh shit, now she's keen." But nothing would really.
Did they have sex on the wreckage of the boat?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
That is so. That may be the worst place sex scene in movie history.
That can't be true. I haven't seen all the movies and I have no memory, but that just...
They have no chemistry. They do not like each other. They have just suffered the end of Act 2 crippling defeat. He has lost everything. Like, all he had was that boat and all the shit on it.
That is true.
And it is a burnt husk.
Yeah.
And then he fucks a woman on it who has been shitting him for like an extensive period.
The whole movie.
Yeah. Like, at least put the fire out first in the back of the ship before you.
I think that's another great example of what we've really nutted down to be the core issue of this. It's a lot of scenes from movies, but in this movie it doesn't gel and flow like a proper movie. It's all the scenes, it's all the moments of a real movie, of an actual perfect movie.
Yeah, this is what they do in movies.
This is the end of and remember before when she said she didn't have sex? Now they have sex because it's all there, but it's just the bare
there. Bones of an arc without earning any.
It's a draft one, but then they're like, let's spend the most money anyone's spent on a film ever, shoot it in the middle of the ocean, and let's do it right now. I very much love post-apocalyptic films. I love the aesthetic of like, the world has ended. Like when it starts, it's like, it's the future. The water is taken over. There's no land. They're looking for a mythical place called Dry Land. And I'm like, I'm in. This is as good as a movie can be. But it never really passed that point of I don't know. It's like the idea of Waterworld I love more than I think I like the movie Waterworld.
Yeah.
Which is, it's such a shame because I really did start this movie going, oh my God, this is, what the fuck? Why haven't I seen this? I should have seen this 1,000 times now. But having finished it, I'm like, I'll watch that. I'll watch that again for sure, you know. Maybe show my brother or something, but...
I think now all I can describe it as is sailboat porn mixed with Mad Max.
Aesthetic? Yeah.
Yeah, without... And even Mad Max doesn't really, like, have incredible characters or anything. Like the first three.
Yeah, but...
The first one especially.
Oh, the first one has nothing. But
No.
But the second one, for instance, you know, has the dude who speaks like this and is like that, you know, he's got that big baby character, he's got that mask, and he stands there and he does the voice, and it's like that, you know, is so iconic that, like, I don't know, it's like, you know, South Park rip it off, and it's like, yeah, because that's, I don't know, it's like, you know, that character feels iconic the way like a horror movie like Pinhead does out of Hellraiser. It's like, there's just something about that just works, and it's going to work forever. And so when I watched it 30 years after it came out, it worked for me when I was 10. When I rewatched it as an adult, it worked for me then. And there's no one like that. Dennis Hopper's just in it. He's not like the role Dennis Hopper was born to play, the proper madman on the seas. You know what I mean? There was no character or anything that was like, that's it. Like the girl was like, she felt like the Fury Road rabid kid mixed with the girl from Aliens, you know, that little kid. And it just, it just felt like all the movies that came out before this had the kid girl character. Let's do that. Let's have her look the same. Let's have her be spunky and attitude and all this. But it was just there without being more than that. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a big remix of other movies and none of it kind of fits together.
A remix of
now
other
I
movies
see...
feels like that's a good... I mean, it's not a good review, but that's an accurate review on the cover. And it's an okay remix.
I would love for someone to reinterpret this who has like a crazy, wilder mind than I can. Like, I want someone who can think of things that I can't think of to make. You know, I want like huge scope and scale, like him, you know, that tiny little boat like moving across the frame, and there's like, I don't know, a gigantic destroyed futuristic building, or you know what I mean. You can see 100%. Where they could go with it. And him like, you know, going through all the wreckage and like I
so
can
for instance,
see the aesthetic.
So for instance, I've only just now fucking realized. I'm just gonna check my things recorded. So I've only just fucking realized right now that the reason he has all the earthly stuff, like, you know, like at the start he's with the kids, he's like playing with the mirror. Yeah, the mirror. Yeah. And I've only just now realized, so it's implied that he swims down to Earth where the dirt is and gets stuff.
And then sells it.
Yeah, but like... I don't know, man. Fucking show me that. You know, like, we probably bring it up too much, considering how I feel about it now. But Force Awakens does that so well, where it's like, how do we establish where we're at in the world? Okay, let's have the big ship cruisers that were the villains of the last movies. 30 years later, they're crashed in the sand, and she goes through the wreckage and sells the bits. Done. Perfect. So much world building in like 2 shots. And then you get the beautiful aesthetics of those visuals we love, but, you know, in wides and rustic and, you know, that lived in thing. This movie needed that kind of, I don't know, like, I don't necessarily need that same scene of him, like, you know, swimming down and getting the things. I guess maybe my brain should have connected those dots as I was watching, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like I want more of that kind of, you know, him pissing in a jar and then it turning into water, and like, there's just little things like he's got the tree, but how does he really sustain? I don't know. There were so many parts of the film where I'm like, yep, but I really couldn't say.
That's what you do more of. That's what the first kind of act is, and it ends in some, like, it kind of follows that same pattern, but you maybe show the inside of the boat and the home that he has there, and him working with the boat and kind of being, it's all one thing, and he's able to maneuver it all perfectly, and give me that sailboat porn again, and like, I don't know, just show him. I think that's the stuff that really sells it and makes it work and gets you invested. And then there's really not a lot of anything else. And the fact that sustained me for 3 hours.
I really...
And just the stunt work and practical effects and all that kind of stuff. Even though there were all these other things kind of niggling at me as it went on.
I'm struggling to find what 45 minutes you watched. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird...
Yeah, I thought there would be more stuff. I don't know what it was they were cut out. Maybe it's just more extended scenes.
Yeah, it feels like maybe it's just a lot of little 2-minute moments throughout the whole film, and not like, here's 15 minutes we just chucked out of the movie. You know what I mean? Like, unless there really is a big chunk in the middle where they're like, this develops the characters, but then someone was like, it doesn't help at all. It makes you feel like you're stagnant and nothing's happening. So they cut that. And so we both still have that. Nothing happens in the second act, but yours was just 15 minutes longer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was another movie we watched, like The Handmaid. I think I watched the extended for that and you didn't. And that was also a bit of like what did I see you didn't see? Because there's nothing I would have cut. So it's probably just that extra like 2 minutes on every scene or 20 seconds on every shot.
And there wasn't too substantial a difference between the two cuts between those movies. Yeah. But I think I remember you mentioned like there was a coin toss or something.
Right. I couldn't.
In The Handmaiden that I don't think was in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, it's just those things, those little moments where you're almost like, I don't even remember that being, but it's like those, I don't know. It's so interesting what people decide to leave in and out of movies though. Like often I'll be like, whoa, that's pretty rough. It's not that common when I'm like, well, those scenes 100% should have been kept in. But then most of the time if I watch a 3-hour extended, I'm just like, yep, You know, like Doctor Sleep, that could have had stuff cut. But that half an hour extra, I'm happy to have watched it, you know? Like, happy to watch it if I'm into the movie. And I would have been happy to watch 45 minutes of this, I reckon. For sure, like, 45 minutes more would have been fine. But at the same time, maybe I would have left it with more kind of resentment for what it could have been. Because I feel like I've been incredibly negative for the last hour. But I feel like I did enjoy it. You know, like I did like it.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, part of me is also like, this should be up there with Mad Max Fury Road. Truly. Like it really should be for me. Because some of the shots I was just like, what the fuck? Like with the bit where he's drowning, like they're going to drown him in the cage. And they're like, drown the fucking mutant, drown him. Ah! And then you're like, how's he going to get out of this one? Clearly something's going to have to happen. And then that dude's like looking around the town. And then he's like, oh, 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 whoa, 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 whoa. And he sees like 1,000 boats coming at them. And then there's that first shot where we just see them all coming.
Oh.
I fucking lost my mind. I was like,
And
what? This is... What? This is spectacular. I couldn't even believe they got that many boats on the ocean.
There were a few and like sunset shots of just boats going through. There's so much like really, really cool, like actual practical, you know, they actually went out and
there's a
shot
boat on the ocean and that moon is right behind them and that is all like there. They've really done that shot. Yeah.
And there's a dozen of those.
Yeah. No, there's some beautiful looking stuff. And the rustic real feel of it is probably my favorite aspect of the whole film, just in terms of like, I don't know, and see that's another part where I'm like, unless you get the right people, a remake of this becomes your total reboots and you're just 99% CGI main actor running through a massive halls of rooms he doesn't understand, swimming through CGI ocean he doesn't understand.
What he's meant to be more of a Force Awakens.
It really does, yeah. I was thinking before, because like I feel like Dune, I mean, having no real thoughts of knowledge of Dune, I feel like it's going to have a deserty feel, like Desert West Waterworld.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of like, so true. Maybe you want to get a Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Because I feel like the strength of his movies, you know, like...
The scope of Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, but...
And like...
The scope of it is huge, spectacular, and brilliant, but I don't know if that film would work if I wasn't completely and like fully into Ryan Gosling's journey of, I'm not a robot, am I? Am I potentially a real boy?
He's Pinocchio.
Know? Yeah, exactly. And his real boy journey is like really awesome, and like, so he's able to have those big like, it's Vegas but it's orange. But like
that's what. But like, I mean, that's ultimately what is great about Denis Villeneuve in my book, is that he is writing that line of delivering like an exceptional looking product and also really thinking about the material and the characters.
Yeah. And
I think that's why his movies always work for me so well, because they look incredible. He picks the best actors. He's working in really big budgets now, but even when he wasn't, even with the smaller budgets, he was still like. Have you seen Incendy?
No, I have not.
It's the film, the last foreign language film he did before he started directing Hollywood films, but it is exceptional. It's really, really good. You will like it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
You really, really need to watch it.
He's
as good at Incendies. Incendies. I think it is.
Yeah. Cool. I don't think I've even heard of that, which is weird.
It's as good as his Hollywood films. It's just the last foreign language one he did.
Yeah,
and I remember hearing him in an interview say the movies he made before that he didn't really like. So I haven't watched them.
Oh, interesting.
I might watch
them. I every time I feel like I talk about him with you, I'm like, fuck, I've not seen enough of his films. It's like I've seen Enemies, Prisoners, and Blade Runner, and that might be it.
And Arrival.
Oh yeah,
which doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't like Arrival, but I feel like Arrival is one of those things. Just like one day, I'm just gonna have to sit down when I'm in the mood to just let something kind of wash over me again and kind of look at it again, like Interstellar. Not to say that because I hated a movie means that I was wrong, but just I respect, like for instance, these two directors of those two movies. That it's like they're two movies that I've hated forever, well since I saw them. But I'm always like, maybe I was just in a bad mood.
The two movies that I They're two movies that I absolutely loved when I saw and was bewildered when I walked out of the cinema to find everyone else didn't love them.
Yeah, isn't it the worst when you're like, wait, what? People, this isn't the most beloved film ever? And then
Not everyone loves Arrival. Did you see what I saw?
Yeah.
Like a fucking alien invasion movie where no one fires a gun and like it's just pure tension, and it's just about a bunch of scientists trying to communicate with this weird
Squid Boys,
squid boys that see time in a circle, so have already like confronted their demise, and they're like, hey, we're just here to like fill this gap in because we don't see time like you retards do, and we're like way ahead of you, and do you want the thing? Oh, you've mistranslated it, now you're all freaking out, don't worry.
Yeah, see, every single time I talk with you, I feel like you like talk about Arrival, and I'm like, I wish I saw that movie. I wish I could see that movie, but I just know that the movie I saw was just like, and I don't know what.
And the whole time you're thinking Amy Adams is this like grieving mother, but really you're just pouring all of this stuff in because we're being shown the events out of order, because she's learning to perceive time as a circle.
Yeah.
And her partner can't deal with it, and I don't know. I think it just the questions it raises for me are super interesting.
Yeah.
And it might not. It does kind of answer them, but it doesn't at the same time.
I think it's
just
like,
makes me rethink.
I think it's
like her
weird section of like not the interpretation, but like the way the reveals happen kind of just tricked me into this weird, not tricked me, but like my brain, like I feel like another film that does the same thing is Ex Machina, which by the guy that we were mentioning earlier, like, or Ex Machina or whatever the fuck it's called, Robot Lady, you know, that whole movie, I felt like the whole movie, it was telling me he was also a robot. And that this was AI versus AI to figure out which AI would realize that they're both AI. Or, you know, it's just, I thought that was the type of movie it was. And then at the end when it's like, it's actually just man makes robot to have sex with. I was like, okay. Well, that's terrible. And this movie sucks. And I feel like
it was just that.
Though. No. I'm just, but the movie kind of like descends into, she just betrays her captor, and I just thought the movie was doing this different thing that when in the third act, it was like, this is what it is, or at least this is what it's turning into. I felt like I just was left with the red herring I thought you set up was just so much more intriguing for me and what I thought we were experiencing as a movie as we were watching it. And so it kind of left me with a bit of cool, she's going out into the world as a robot, and I just don't care. Because, I do have a big issue when I think a red herring is super exciting and then it's less exciting or less big and epic than the actual reveal. And in my brain, there's this one movie that I can never ever think of that has the most egregious version of that. But then Ex Machina is like up there. But I really do think, because often I think that a really good movie like that, and like, you know, I've seen Annihilation 4 or 5 times, you know, and each time I get more. I feel like one time I got a bit less. I was like, do I like this? Is this the best movie I've seen? But then I watched it the next time, and I'm like, no, it's just because the person I watched with sucks, and he didn't like it for some insane reason, because he's no, he's not the worst. You know, just saw it a different way. But when we discussed it afterwards, I was like, fuck, you didn't. Not, I mean, he got what he got from it, but it's like, that movie for me is just so, it's like the ideas and the themes, the concepts are so staggering. That movie for me is really breathtaking, and it has that. I mean, I don't even really. We related these things to Waterworld in any way, but I just feel like this guy and his themes and his concepts and these big. It was to do with Arrival, like those big themes and concepts, and like when you discuss that kind of like big sweeping idea of like time as a circle, and I love that, like time being like not what we perceive it, because we really just crafted this thing. I love that. But then when I watched the movie, for me it just felt like a scene where she's like, Chinese businessman, something, and he was like something, and then there was some time travel, or there wasn't. I just remember being a very like, no, you know, like with Interstellar, as we mentioned, like that time, like just that one line where she's like, love transcends everything. That just sticks with me. And I bet you if I rewatched it, it wouldn't stick with me in that like, no, No, it does not transcend shit.
That became a thing though because everyone kept talking about.
And see, that could be it. It could just be like
every review talked about that same line, which is why I kind of one of the reasons I like doing this longer form discussion, and I think this is like how I like listening to people talk about movies is that they don't just repeat the same, maybe like kind of obvious in your face thing every time. You got to do a 5-minute review.
Yeah, because you got to hit the beats, you got to hit the main thing, and then you got to make sure you remember that one bit that every single person hates. And then when you feel oversaturated with that, because that movie's pretty old now, man. Like I couldn't tell you why I think her line sucks anymore. Like I remember thinking because I watched the movie that one time and went, "What? No." But truly, the only thing I truly remember disliking in the cinema really was like when he's in like the library of, you know, that visual kind of tapestry world. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like, you know, he's in that weird ethereal world, and it wasn't working for me. I was just like, I don't know. Wasn't this a movie about corn or something? Like I don't know this. What's going on? And the daughter's like finds the watch or some shit. It just doesn't work for me. But a lot of that can be brought on by discussions and thoughts that kind of come from other places, and they seep into you. And they seep into you without you fully realizing. And then when you rewatch something, you're like, I have a completely different take on this. Because I find that with these big movies, I'll be like, yeah. That is how I think. And then you're rewatching it, like maybe that's just some guy's thought that I had, and I listened to it and I was like, yeah, I agree with that. But it's like, yeah, I don't know. It can be interesting with things like that.
The Anne Hathaway scene for me in that movie, it just seems like this is a person who is trying to grapple with like enormous cosmic events.
Yeah.
Spinning around them at that very moment that they are unable to deal with.
And then she says a wild, insane, completely inaccurate thing to reassure herself. Love transcends everything, which makes sense as a character.
But no, what she's saying is based in the reality that is presented in the movie. Whether you like what she says or not, the fact that she loved her husband and the fact that Matthew McConaughey loves his kids is the reason all of this shit is going on. Yeah, and is the reason humanity is able to survive. And if we're thinking about all of these other forces in the world that work on the universe, is this another one? And it's schmaltzy and it's like sappy and it's all of these things. But at the end of the day, this is a story about like two characters going out into the universe and like essentially just like accidentally figuring out how to save humanity, I guess.
You have an innate ability to talk about a movie I hate and make me go, I'm wrong. I have to be wrong. Everything you said then is like, it's such a good scene. But then I'm like, I don't remember liking it in any way.
I don't think about that Anne Hathaway scene. I think about the scene where he gets back to the ship after he's been gone for like 11 years and then like watches the videos from his kids.
Yeah, that is a fucking, that's
and it's like Casey Affleck is like, oh hey dad, we got a little baby here, and then like the next video, oh we lost the baby, dad. Yeah. And you're just like, oh my god, this was already devastating enough, and then the daughter isn't talking. I don't know, just all
that's probably the only scene I remember truly, like in terms of like being like that scene is great.
But then there's like the Dr. Man and it's Matt Damon.
Yeah, I was about to say the movie for me is really a movie where they go to a water planet and that guy dies in a tsunami. There's that weird robot, and then Matt Damon rocks up halfway through the movie.
Tars, the best robot ever.
Yeah, that's
fucking
really great.
Do you know what I want the movie to be? At the end, when Matthew McConaughey gets in the ship with his robot and flies off, I'm like, oh, this is the movie I want. This is, and the music's like swelling. And it's like implied he's going to see Anne Hathaway, and like that's the last shot of the movie. But no, I want that. I want him exploring the universe with Tars, his weird robot
thing. Yeah.
That is the movie I want.
I just remember
Luke and the X-wing.
The design of his of the way it kind of it's like, I don't know. It's just such a weird the way it kind of moves and spins around. Does it spin? I'm trying.
Yeah.
I feel like the way it
Yeah.
motored through the water was just like. Christopher Nolan does that thing where you're like, what the fuck? Is that a real robot? What the fuck?
It's a big puppet.
Yeah,
too,
is it? Is
which
that
I
what it
love.
is? Of course it is.
Yeah.
He's such a madman. What the fuck?
Yeah.
You don't need to make that. That would be such a... Oh, I mean, I have no idea. I don't know anything about effects, but that surely would be a pretty easy visual effect compared to practical, you know, in terms of like what you'd have to do. But it looks so good and like...
But the way it walks, it's like kind of two arms and then like a middle body bit, and they just have a guy in a green suit behind it, kind of pushing the legs.
BB-8 style, then, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That makes sense, actually. That's pretty cool. I'm going to probably Google some of those footage of the guys running around with that after.
Yeah. And also, my big thing, just keeping it on Interstellar for a bit.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Why does no one complain? Why does no one fucking complain about Inception in the same way that they complain about these other movies? Because it's the same shit.
Oh, yeah, but...
Why did everyone just switch off for Inception and go, like, that's the thing. I walked out of Inception, I was like, oh my god, did everyone else see that movie? And everyone else was like, yeah, we saw that movie.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
And then I keep going to Christopher Nolan movies and walking out and going, did you all see that? And everyone's slowly going, no.
Yeah.
And then with Dunkirk, I finally had it, where I walked out and went, maybe, have I been wrong the whole time?
Yeah. I mean...
But then I hear Quentin Tarantino talk about Dunkirk, and I'm like, wow, he's really like thinking about it in a different way, and you know, maybe you need a bit of distance from it. And I feel like Dunkirk is saying more than I was able to pick up when I watched it.
Yeah.
Like I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and not go, there's nothing here. It's just like even the last shots of the movie, I still haven't had someone really like discuss and think about what he was trying to say there. Like, you end that movie with the shot of Tom Hardy and the plane burning, because that's the best shot in the movie.
Big, epic, cinematic, powerful, and the ending of the story.
But then he cuts back to the two boys on the train, coming home to England, not feeling like heroes. And, you know, there's more, I think, going on. And
so I don't even remember that, but it sounds such a good way to end it. Like, a better way. Like, even just hearing that, I'm like, oh, that sounds so like... Because then it makes you go, why are we still watching the movie? And then you watch that little moment and you're like, I don't know. And I think like that's, I don't know. But to answer your like Interstellar to Inception, I don't have any reason apart from Inception is literally one of my favorite action movies of all time. Up there with Terminator 2. I don't have a single thing about Inception I dislike. I think every second of it, including Tom Hardy being like, I can change faces because dreams or whatever. Who cares? Nothing makes sense. I love it every second of it so fucking much. It's such a great just... We want to have a bunch of set pieces. So dreams within dreams. One of them's an ice palace fortress like it's a James Bond movie for no fucking reason. Trains and cities and just... I don't know. It has everything. They're smashing real water through giant... Chinese buildings and it's just I don't know, man.
I think the faster the faster pace a Christopher Nolan film is, the more forgiving people are of the kind of holes and things that don't work. And that's why Dark Knight and Inception are the cream of the crop, because I think in that 2008 to 2010 period was when he was working at his like fastest. And he was like pumping movies out every 2 years, and the pace was like, I think that's probably what people will look back on. Those two movies that like came out right next to each other, Dark Knight and Inception, 2 years apart, where the pace is just like breakneck and the movies are really long and there's so much going on. And I feel like even like Dark Knight Rises slows down a little bit from Dark Knight, and people notice a lot more of the plot holes. Even though they're all there in Dark Knight. They're all there staring you in the face, but the movie's moving too quick and it's all working a bit too well for you to see. And then by the time we get to Dark Knight Rises and Interstellar, he's moving slower and his movies are not traveling at the same pace they once were. And now, even though the inconsistencies I think are the same, and we can fine-tooth comb through each movie and pick out the same number of inconsistencies. It's just the pace at which they move along that works. And then Dunkirk is like that all the way to the extreme. It's like his slowest and most
and
drawn out and seemingly inconsequential. Like, what are you trying to say? Are you saying anything anymore? You are not even putting characters in your movie.
Although I feel like that is like I kind of feel like as I watch it, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. I feel of Dunkirk, like that kind of every man that we're all like, the individual doesn't, that kind of feeling. But for me, it like didn't even like land for that. It was more just like, I just don't feel like I'm connecting to anyone because you couldn't be bothered making me connect. But it's that slow paced thing you're saying though is I don't know. It could be so accurate because the amount of times people say, remember this scene from Dark Knight? What about this about it? And you're like, what the fuck? That is so stupid. But then if I watch the movie, because the scene's so good, then the end of the scene happens, but then the next scene starts and it's so good, my brain really isn't able to be like, hey, what? Batman left the Joker up there. What? That scene shouldn't be over. Or, hey...
Whereas in Dark Knight Rises...
It's the same stuff, but for some reason...
He's in another country and then he gets back to Gotham and it's all cut off. But the movie's like 40 minutes longer.
Yeah,
and
it's got just that...
There's probably less action in... There's less action in Dark Knight Rises than there is in Dark Knight. Just from what I'm thinking about, like... It's lots of sad people in mansions in Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, especially the first 40 minutes. It's a big chunk of sad slowness.
But then even the like... It's 40 minutes, but then the action sequence isn't an action sequence. He just drives a bike around a corner and then gets in his plane. And then it's over. That's not... Like, that's all that happens.
His bike around a corner. That's such a good bit, though, because he's like, the music kicks in. That guy's like, oh, you're ready for a show,
nothing happens.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
He just outruns the cops, gets in, and even Michael Caine says it in the next scene. He's like, "You just showed off your new toys. You didn't do anything."
Yeah, that's so good. You and your fancy toys. Yeah, I mean, without the ship, he was fucked.
Yes. So, any other thoughts on Waterworld?
No, but I did have something else to say about Christopher Nolan. No. I probably did, but no. Like back to Waterworld. I've pretty much settled all I say, but there's like a thing I feel like I probably didn't mention. It was like, there was a moment where when on that first area, the tree that was in the Waterworld, like, village castle thing, and it was on fire, and what's his name? Kevin Costner was in a cage being drowned in that sludge, all in just like the one shot while all this chaos was going on. And I just remember being like, yeah, that's pretty fucking wild stuff. Like, I know that he's probably not getting drowned or whatever, for real. But it really felt like real, and the tree's really on fire. They're really out in the ocean in this castle, and it was just like those kind of shots. It's like, yeah, I've shit talked this movie for the whole time, pretty much. But that's fucking, I couldn't do that, Like that's fucking epic. That's a epic, intense filmmaking. Everyone, like the crew, I feel like I think this has got a bit of a Game of Thrones 5 to 8 for me, where it's like the crew and the production team are doing well that it makes the story, when it's not perfect, kind of annoy you even more than maybe it would.
Yes.
Like if this didn't look as good, it'd just be a nothing 4 out of 10 film. But the production quality is at 12. So when the story's not hitting at least an 8, you're like, what the fuck? Don't spend this money. Don't spend this time.
Squandering it.
Yeah, and I'm not really one to get actually angry about a movie. Like, I'll pretend I'm angry. But it takes a Rise of Skywalker or Game of Thrones to really piss me off. This didn't piss me off, but it does make me kind of sad that they weren't able to, like, craft something just a bit... I don't know. I mean, it's not even that bad. There's some great moments, but it's, like, just little key things, like not crafting at least one villain that that's good enough. And it kind of felt like they didn't have a villain, and then Dennis Hopper rocked up and it's like, I'm just gonna Dennis Hopper all over this dialogueless villain you've created with no character. You know what I mean? Like it.
But then there's the side villain with the hair, and it's like, are you gonna set him up to be anything? And then he never really does. Like there's your like first boss henchman dude who he takes down just before the big boss, which he does. Like, it plays out the same way.
Yeah.
He's still that same thing. There's just none of the development there. He's just there, He has a little conversation with him earlier on, and then he shoots him at the end. And there's not really like a... when you think of the sub-henchman...
Yeah, no.
There's a little tit for tat going on that's normally kind of unspoken, and then there's a little story that kind of plays throughout the movie between those two characters. Sub henchman is generally the physical threat, while the main henchman is like controlling the army. And they were kind of doing it, and then they didn't really do it.
Yeah.
And that's the whole movie.
Yeah, it's so weird, because like that bit, and his big foppish hair, I hated as well. Hated everything about it. I felt like he wasn't well cast. You know, like I looked at him and I went, that's nothing. He's a nothing guy. I don't look at him and go, I want to see him on the screen doing things, you know? And I felt like there was a lot of that. And there's a bit where he's like escaping the first castle village place, and he throws a spear. He's like, fuck you, sub henchman villain guy. And he misses him, and the henchman's like, oh, and he's like, you know, and then Kevin Costner does that like, I just missed you by 1 millimeter kind of hand gesture. I'm doing it. You can't see it, but I'm doing it. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of beat is that for him to be like, oh, almost gotcha? And then the guy's like, shakes his fist. He's like, you almost got me. And then it's like, that's the setup. But what the fuck was that? You know, I don't know. I felt like there's a lot of that kind of stuff where it felt just, I don't know. It's there. Like, he has the initial, like, thing with the henchman, but it's not really there. It's just, it's dot pointed. The whole film feels dot pointed.
What you need is, so there's an exchange at the bar.
Yeah.
And in that exchange, Kevin Costner goes, it's because I never miss. And then he throws the thing and he misses. And he's like, God. I only miss because I... And then at the end, he's got the gun to him and then he just shoots it. You know, that at least... Now you've got the 3 points of...
At least that's something. You know what I mean?
It's not even good. Yeah?
It's better.
It's not even
that,
good. You but all you need to do is put that in, and then you kind of tweak it, and you make it
exactly.
work.
On the set, they can create more from it. You can, At least that's, I don't know. At least that's trying.
That's the bare minimum.
Yeah,
they
didn't really hit that for everything. Yeah, but then the production quality, like that spear he throws and misses, it looks great. It looks like he threw that spear for sure. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's my final thing I have to say. Don't like his foppish hair.
I don't really have any other like love-hate things, and I feel like I'm just kind of endlessly listing things that don't quite work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Which is I'm looking forward to just having a conversation with someone about this movie who either loves or hates it.
I don't think I know many people that have seen this. I feel like this isn't like... At least in, like the people I know. I don't know how many people that would have watched this. But maybe I'm wrong. Who knows?
I think my mum loves this movie.
That's amazing. That's so good to hear.
Have you seen Dances with Wolves?
No, but I was actually looking at his movies earlier, and that was one of the films that came up as I guess I should watch that. Have you seen?
Well, he directed and starred in, and that one won all the Academy Awards, and is like 3 hours something long. That might be the definitive Kevin Costner film.
Right, cool. Yeah, maybe I should check that out then.
Yeah, I was thinking about it after watching this.
Yeah. Is that a Western? Or is that a different one I'm thinking of?
I think it's Native Americans.
Right. So maybe it's back in that frontier-esque time?
Yeah, and I think he kind of goes and lives with them. I think a lot of people, when Avatar came out, said Avatar's the same as the movie.
That's why I've heard it. Yes, Avatar is Dancing with Wolves and Pinocchio. Not Pinocchio, that other one.
So we've probably seen it already.
But it's always interesting to see.
It would be interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. I should check it out.
But it's also like 3.5 hours.
Oh, I'll check it out eventually. I'll check it out in segments, 1 hour a day or something. Yeah.
Yeah.